Hey, you guys, welcome to history. This is week 28, and let's just kind of do a real quick catch up. A lot of you have been working to get all of your weeks up until now. So once you get to week 28, we've gotten the official word, you guys already know this, but that we will not be going back to school for the rest of the year. That's a huge bummer. So we keep saying around my house, this is a bummer. But it's disappointing, and definitely not the way we thought that this year would end when we started out. So if that ever happened in life, just kind of have an idea of the way things are going to go, and then all of a sudden take a big left turn and there's a new way to do things. So we are all in the same boat, moms, dads, kids, traditional school, homeschool, all the kinds of jobs that moms and dads and grandparents and friends have. Everything's just a little bit different. Sorry, just had a little computer problem there for a second. So now that we know for sure that we will be continuing online classes until the end of the school year, I just wanted to give you a little bit of an update. So keep going. Don't stop. So we've got a lot of you are still getting caught up with Queen Elizabeth. Can you guys hear my puppy watchers upstairs? Everybody's barking. Once you've done the Queen Elizabeth, then you guys need to have moved on to your astronomy and your astronomer project now. When we talked last week about the different astronomers and science during the Renaissance, up until then, we compared it to how we had like our Greek philosophers, and they would think and kind of come up with an idea and just sort of, this is the way I think it would work. Well, in the Renaissance, we had astronomers that they didn't just take some of those ideas as that's the truth. They really wanted to be able to prove it. And this is where we start having a lot of the scientific breakthroughs during the Renaissance and then continuing forward, because they started to use the scientific method. They wanted to be able to prove scientifically with hard facts. These weren't just guesses, these were facts. They wanted to know if this was the way this worked or that worked. And the solar system, they wanted to be able to prove those things. So whichever your astronomer was that you chose, and whether his philosophy of the solar system was the geocentric or heliocentric, I need you to make sure that you've gotten that project done and you filled out your paper, take a picture of it and email it to me. This is the work, you guys. This is I need you to do that and get that to me, not just have kind of glanced at the information. So I've seen some, and we're early in the week for you of doing that because we record these ahead of time, but you guys need to get those to me so I can look at them and see your work and see what you've done. So depending on the astronomer that you chose, today we're going to talk about one specifically. We talked a little bit about Copernicus last week, but we're going to talk about Galileo today. Now, he was a Renaissance scientist that he really wanted to prove things. Like I said, he wasn't just about guessing and taking someone's ideas. He had his own ideas and he set out to prove them. So one of the really cool things about Galileo was not only how he proved or tried to prove and had his ideas about the solar system, but he also had some pretty cool ideas about proving gravity. And I'm going to show you a brain pop right now because you guys know I love a brain pop. So let's learn just a little bit more about Galileo and some of his ideas. There we go.
Ah! Please don't sneak up on me. Dear Tim and Moby, who was Galileo? From Yumi. Galileo Galilei was an Italian astronomer and physicist. His discoveries with the new invention of the telescope changed our understanding of the universe. And his experiments in physics overturned beliefs that had been held for thousands of years. He was born in 1564 in Pisa, Italy. At 25, he became a professor of mathematics at the University of Pisa. Galileo had his own ideas about how the universe worked, and he taught theories that contradicted those of Aristotle. Well, back then, pretty much all of physics was based on the ideas of Aristotle, a major Greek philosopher from the 4th century BCE. Aristotle said that heavier objects would fall faster than light ones. Galileo argued that the speed at which objects fell to the ground was constant. But to scientists in Galileo's time, anything that went against Aristotle's ideas was suspect.
That university didn't renew Galileo's contract, so he moved on to teach at the University of Padua, near Venice.
In 1609, after hearing stories about the invention of a telescope in Holland, Galileo built one of his own and turned it toward the stars. In early 1610, he published his findings in a book called The Starry Messenger. He reported that there were mountains and valleys on the moon, that 4 moons revolved around the planet Jupiter, and that the Milky Way is made up of individual stars. Yeah, well, Jupiter has way more than 4 moons, but Galileo's telescope just wasn't very strong. These were huge findings, though, and Galileo was appointed as court mathematician at Florence. A few years later, in a paper on sunspots, Galileo wrote that he supported Copernicus's theory of the solar system. Nicholas Copernicus was a Polish astronomer who believed that the Earth and other planets revolved around the sun. This contradicted Aristotle, who believed everything revolved around the Earth. Not to mention the Catholic Church, which also put the Earth at the center of the universe. When Galileo wrote a pro-Copernicus work called Dialogue on the Two Chief World Systems, the Church took action. Galileo stood trial in Rome in 1633, where a court forced him to say that Copernicus was wrong. They also confined him to his own house for the rest of his life, and the sentence against him was read publicly at every Italian university. While under house arrest, Galileo wrote another major work on the motion of objects, which would later influence Isaac Newton's theory of gravity. Of course, after Galileo's death, most of his ideas were proven correct, including his support of Copernicus's solar system. But Galileo's biggest contribution to science may have been his reliance on the scientific method instead of on abstract theory. He used observations and experiments instead of philosophy and thought.
In doing this, he was able to get a more accurate picture of the world than folks who just believed what they wanted to.
Hey, let me see what you're looking at. Huh. There's something kind of weird about that.
Weird that he would be observing the observatory. That's actually pretty funny. I think Tim and Moby are hilarious. And right now, it's fun to laugh because sometimes we need some things to laugh at. Okay, so here's what I want to talk about with Galileo. Now, had we been in class, we would have worked on these astronomical projects with the heliocentric or geocentric models. We would have worked on those together. We would have worked on them as a class. We would have put them together, and then today we would have done our presentation. So obviously, we can't do that. So today's lesson is a reminder for you to finish your astronomer paper. I want you to get that done. This is what we needed to have learned about this week is those astronomers and making a model to show that you have an understanding of either the geocentric or heliocentric model. Is it correct? Was it proven wrong? Was your astronomer proven wrong? And then even if they were proven wrong, what were your observations about the solar system? And knowing what we know now in 2020 and what you've researched. So we talked about those facts last week, and so do finish that and get that sent in to me so I can see it. And then today is just kind of a little bit of some fun That was a review, Galileo, that actually reviewed, those of you that may have chosen Galileo as your astronomer, a little bit of a review for you. But the thing that I want you to think about right now, when we talk about astronomers and scientists in the Renaissance in history, is the huge impact that their studies and their ideas made on the world, on history. So it might feel like we're in science class just a little bit, which it kind of does a little when we're talking about space and planets. But thinking about it as because what's the Renaissance? This was a huge time period of enlightenment and of change and of growth. Think about our artists and our musicians and painters and sculptors. What were they doing? They were bringing this knowledge and these ideas to people. They were kind of expanding everyone's view. They were enlightening our minds. They were giving us new things to think about and directions to study. Did you guys notice how Galileo he influenced Isaac Newton? So the influence of these scientists and scholars from the Renaissance period, their writings and teachings and ideas took us even further into more modern thinkers and scientists and physicians and builders and architects and engineers, astronauts. These ideas that kind of came out of the Renaissance, like the first budding of ideas about investigating the world around them and kind of having ideas about how things worked and their relationship to us. This is where those great ideas started to come from. So when we talk about Galileo, the two things they brought up in the video and when we talked about it just a little bit before was being able to prove your ideas. So Galileo was not a guesser. He was going to prove his ideas. And so the one experiment that you guys can do at home and grab a handful of items and try the experiment with gravity. He set out to prove, different than Aristotle, that the gravitational pull on two objects is going to be the same. If you want to go a little further, you can do a little study about that. Why is that? That's kind of more in the science realm, but just for fun, you guys can take a couple of objects, take a ball of one size and a ball of another, put them out in front of you like this and drop them at the same time and see what happens. Will they drop? Will they hit the ground at the same time? Now his idea was, if you threw an elephant and an orange off the Leaning Tower of Pisa, that they would hit at the same time. So he did not throw an elephant off the Leaning Tower of Pisa, but he did some experiments to show that the gravitational pull, that he was correct, and that the thinking of Aristotle was not factual. So I love that he was a thinker and that he wanted to prove things, and he was using everything that he had at his available to him to prove these ideas. So go around now. Nobody do anything crazy. No elephants. You could use crumpled up piece of paper, like a little ball. You could do. Sorry. You try a couple different experiments around you. Something that's not going to make a mess, and see what happens. Okay. So that's one. Now the second thing is, because the telescope had been invented, now they were able to look out into space. And it talked in the video about what he saw on the moon, and then he saw the moons of Jupiter. So I've got a craft or kind of an activity for you to do. So in our supplemental, or in our at a glance supply sheet for week 28, excuse me. I talk so much, my throat gets dry. You will see a video to make an origami telescope. Now, this is really cool, and I actually did it. I did it, and then I brought it downstairs to do my recording, and it fell apart. So use tape. I didn't use my tape very well, but it's really fun. So you're going to need 2 pieces of paper. I just use white paper. You can use 2 different colored papers. You can use 4 papers because you're going to tear each paper in half if you want it to have multiple colors, but you're going to need at least 2 pieces of paper. If you need a pair of scissors, you can cut them in half the way the video will show you, or you can just tear them. My white paper tore really, really easily. Sorry, there's a lot going on at my house right now. I want you guys to make a telescope. So this is really fun. It takes some patience, and you will want to watch the video and just follow along, and you can push pause. You can even back it up if you need to, but you're going to need to create your telescope. It's kind of fun. I think you're going to like it. So that's one option. Now, if you are struggling with it, or if yours happens to fall apart like mine did, use tape. You can grab anything that might work as a telescope. So I've got your handy dandy paper towel roll. You could use a couple of toilet paper rolls. And if you want to make it so it's telescopic, you could cut them and fit them and do some fun things with those. Maybe you've got some card stock at home that you could roll. So just be creative. Use what you've got around your house and make yourself a little telescope. So I got a couple of things that you can do along with your telescope. You can go out tonight when it's dark or whenever you watch this and just kind of experiment and see what you can see out in the night sky. But then I also have a printable for you. It's on the optional supplies. So it looks like this. And they are just little, they're, I can't think of the word. These are just the different constellations. So here's what you can do with them. Kind of fun. Just a little push pin. You can take a safety pin. So I've got a safety pin right here. So I cut one out ahead of time. And of course it's missing right now because I can't find it. Anyway. Can't find it. I may push pause so you think I had it all. Anyway, so if you cut them out, you can tape them to the end of your telescope, and then you could take a flashlight or your light, put them up against the wall and shine your light through and see if you can have it come out the other end. Now, that's obviously not what a telescope does, but it would be fun. You could put them on the end here and shine your light this way, and then it would be as if as if you were shining it, if you're looking at it up in the sky. So I did one here, and I punched it through I did tin foil. I thought that would be kind of fun. And then the tin foil will stick around your telescope really well. So at the end was Ursa Major, the Big Dipper. So I thought what would be kind of fun is if you just kind of wanted to play around with this. So you have your telescope like this, and Ursa Major, you guys aren't going to be able to see that, but from the inside I could see it. And so then I would maybe take my light and I would look through and see it. That would be kind of fun. If you want to just do some fun, so you could take your pin and just push it through, and then you could maybe put it up against the wall and shine it. Oh, I turned my flashlight off. And just shine it. Let's see if I can get it. No, it's too far away. Isn't this fun? Guys, it's just like we're in class and we're trying to do something. So you guys can play around with those. So you've got your little constellations printout like this. If you want to put them on the end of your telescope, like I said, I used these as a template, and then I punched it through the tinfoil just because I thought tinfoil would go around the bottom of your telescope easier like that. Then you wouldn't need any tape, but you could certainly do tape and then just tape around and kind of have fun with it. See if you can make some shadows on the walls with your constellations, and kind of experiment with that telescope. What does it look like? Pretend that you're Galileo and you're out looking at the stars. If you guys need some other ideas, I have one more link on the additional supplies that has a little bit about the experiment with dropping, if you guys want to do that too. So this was just kind of a fun week to sort of reinforce what we learned about astronomy and about these Renaissance astronomers and scientists. And then what's going to happen next week, we are going to talk about Da Vinci. Now, we all know who Da Vinci is, but we are going to talk about Da Vinci. And then what we would have done for the end of the school year with history is you were going to create an invention. Now, Da Vinci was an inventor. You guys know that. But you are going to be creating your own invention. So watch for an email that will come to your parents. It's going to give you some information about creating some ideas about what to create, or how you could create an invention. And then because we won't be able to be together to present it to families as they came through, this is kind of like when we've done other end of year projects, I want to be able to showcase your invention to everyone. So this is going to require that you get on this assignment and get it done quickly so that you can send it to me. You can either send a picture Watch for the details in the video to see exactly how we're going to do that. And then we will be able to show those to everybody in the lesson. But if you wait and you don't get it done, we will have a cutoff date where you need to send those to me so that you can get those included in either, I don't know how we'll do it, in a slideshow or a video, I'm not sure, but we'll be able to show those, maybe just pictures. Maybe we'll just have you take an actual picture and we'll show those to everybody so you guys can see these amazing inventions. So next week, week 29, be ready to go. And we'll talk about we'll talk a lot about Da Vinci and talk about inventing, and it'll be really fun. So I hope you guys are doing great and hanging in there with this kind of crazy time that we're having right now. Have a little bit of fun with your telescope making. Tell me how it worked. If you found a better way, that origami was really cool. I didn't tape it very well, I guess, and it fell apart. So, or if you make a telescope on your own. Now, if you have younger siblings in the program, they are actually making a telescope also, but it's a little more, it's a little easier. So make one of those with them if you want. You guys can do it as a family project. So I hope you guys are doing good, and I will see you next week for Da Vinci and inventions.